Live from the Talking Joe Studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Sorry, you just caught me contemplating the Baroness figure there. I might be returning to that shortly. Welcome to Talking Joe, streaming live and direct at the time of recording. After that, it's not live, but still fairly direct. Today, we will be taking our second look at the G.I. Joe 40th anniversary special, which this amazing recreation of the classic issue 21 Silent Interlude by a host of G.I. Joe artists from the pantheon of the IDW legends, let's call them. Why not? Without too much ado, let's introduce who we will be talking to. First up, it's the man, Adam Richards.
Hello. How's it going?
Good. It's another copy sold.
All right.
Well, at least in the hands of somebody. So we've got the stats. We've got at least, I think I've got evidence of at least 5 copies of this out in the world 5. Now. At least 5. Great to have you on board, Adam. Let's bring some more people into the stream. Next up, we have got Casey Maloney.
Hi, everybody. I got mine.
What? At least 6. At least 6 now. We've got evidence. So we had Casey on not too long ago. We were talking about his issue 289 in our podcast, Behind the Scenes.
Yes,
so
sir.
great to have you back.
Nice to be here.
It's what's always more surprising to me than a guest joining us, another returning guest. It's the man, Andrew Lee Griffiths. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Just singular Griffith though, not plural.
That was me doing the lisping rather than yes, a Griffith. Stop. Yes. So again, returning guest. We had you back when just after issue 286, the Storm Shadow Untold Tale had shortly come out, and you talked about that as well as your experience of the Murder by Assassination arc, and since then you've had another issue out. So
have I?
Yeah, you have. It's this one. It's
yes. It's just the October Guard one, yeah.
290, the October Guard. So maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Yeah. But I'm doing this at a slightly later hour than normal in somewhat dark south coast of England. Where are you guys talking to me from today? Let's start this direction. Andrew.
If we're looking at the same grid as you, I am coming to you from the Tampa Bay area of Florida.
Nice. I'm in Southern California, Ventura, California.
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Very good. And you're in these interesting locations there. So my eye is sort of slightly zooming in on the array of things, sort of ordered very precisely behind Adam. So Adam, let's talk about the space that you're in briefly.
So I spend most of my life in this space at either the desk that I'm looking at now that you can't see, or this computer here, where I work all day, surrounded by oodles and oodles of plastic. This is a case full of the complete Kenner 1977 to 1983 vintage Star Wars figures. Up here, we've got a Save the Clock Tower Back to the Future poster, the original cover, Larry Hama's original cover art for Real American Hero 161 next to the printed cover.
Oh, wow.
Here is a 27 by 40 G.I. Joe the Movie Theater poster. Here is a variety of G.I. Joe card art that I did, but certainly not all of it. Devil's Due Cobra Law poster, some Mattel wrestling figures, some modern era G.I. Joes, a NECA Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, G.I. Joe Ford America. Did I cover it all concisely? Here's a bottle of New Coke.
New Coke. For display purposes only.
Yeah.
Excellent. And Andrew, you're in your is it your workspace with your studio?
Like my office or studio, whatever. Yeah. I've got also like a lot of like vintage. That's my Cobra side up there with like the vintage, some of my original toys and stuff I've restored, and then some of like the artwork I've worked on and things like some of the few originals I've held on to, and then I've got some of the vintage Star Wars stuff up there. Some of my original Transformers below it, and then up above me, it's a bit of a challenge to move my computer, but it's more like the Joes and stuff. And then I've got some more Star Wars. I'm sorry, some more Star Wars and Transformers stuff over there, but my Rattler and stuff. So it's just kind of a mix like G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Star Wars stuff.
Excellent. I was admiring on Twitter just the other day some of the photos that you'd posted of your setup.
Someone reshared that. I'd taken a picture of my setup. Yeah.
Yeah, you had the it was basically like all the classic 82s, in the base.
Yes.
It's just that. That's for me. It's the classic year.
Yes,
yeah,
for sure. Like I went through a phase during the lockdown where I was like collecting, reestablishing my collection of like the original straight arm ones for some reason.
Oh wow!
Mine to just get all the straight arm ones, the original 12 with the original first year vehicles, because most of mine were broken. So over the years, excellent. So, yeah.
And Casey, do you have your own sort of G.I. Joe kind of museum behind you?
This is my Shotgun Shack studio here. So this is where I work all the time. My computer's right here and stuff, and I draw right here on the table and paint and everything. Yeah, I don't really have any toys or memorabilia around here right now. I got my little artist mannequin. That's about it. It's got a busted leg though. But yeah, wherever I can work, I squeeze it in. Wherever space I got.
Excellent. And I think we've got our final guest of today lined up in the waiting room. Do you want to give a thumbs up if you can, if you're all set? Here we are. It's it's the man who's worked on probably more issues of G.I. Joe than anyone else apart from Larry Hama. Yeah. It's the true godfather of G.I. Joe. It's James Brown. Good to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me. Glad I could make it.
Nice to meet you.
Absolutely.
Same here.
So, what sort of setup have you got in your room? Have you got your own work? Have you got toys? What sort of things have you got going on?
I've got toys. I haven't been keeping up as much lately, just because I haven't been getting to lots of shops. But I'm a big fan of poster art and a lot of the Alex Ross paintings. I think it's fantastic stuff. So it looks like comic book art, but painted quality as well. So I have a few of those Alex Ross paintings behind me.
Oh yeah. Oh, excellent. Let's have a zoom in on some of those as well. I love. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. I love a bit of Alex Ross.
Some Marvel figures in the background there too.
Excellent. Have you built up any G.I. Joe collection of your own? You've been tempted to delve your...
For a while there, I was getting some of the classic figures, but the thing would be, I would get the figure of a character that I had colored. So for a while there, that would be fun to say, oh, I'm working on this issue, and here's, whether it be a different type of Cobra Viper or one of the more obscure Joes, I'd be coloring them. Even if it was a small character in the background, I would find them and add them to the toy collection. But I did too many characters. I couldn't keep up.
Yeah, that's right. So as a bit of a segue into, I guess, some of the background here. So, for example, Adam, I know you've worked on issues or art with many characters on them, and particularly I'm thinking of this one, the issue 212. I believe that this is something like 280 characters.
I think you got it. Yep.
Wow.
Is that on the right lines? How did that one come about?
Kind of a long, convoluted thing, but I had been trying to get work on the G.I. Joe comic, on the G.I. Joe toys, anything G.I. Joe for the longest time. Finally started doing action figure packaging artwork. Had been trying for the longest time to get to do comics, and was then telling the editor, Carlos, at the time, now I'm working on the action figures, but just wasn't really getting me anywhere. And then it was just sort of a perfect storm that, I guess from wearing them down or whatever, I found out that there was an availability to do a store exclusive. It coincided with JoeCon that year. I was able to partner that up with a store that I really like. And basically, when it was the death of Snake Eyes, I started thinking about concepts. And there's that really great America's Elite cover that's basically like the counterpoint to this. But I think Cobra has the cooler costumes anyway. And when I finally got my first chance to work on a Joe book, I just thought, what's the most absolutely outlandish, over the top thing I could do that'll make a huge impression that no one will ever forget? And so it was this. And that's how that happened. And then shortly after that, they offered me the chance to do an 8-issue run doing covers with action figure variants.
Oh, yes. So the action figure variants, I think I've got an example of one of them. Here we go.
Yep.
So this is so in terms of talking about the main man of this particular issue, Snake Eyes. It's not the first time that you've encountered him in terms of the pages of IDW. So at some point you got asked to do this series of, what was it? Something like 8-ish.
Yep. 8 of these. And some of them were really straightforward. Like, this is pretty much an exact recreation. So I was just trying to find ways to make them visually interesting. And so, because otherwise, why not just use a photo, honestly? So that's why the color from the liner card carries over to the background. But on some of them, like Zap, I was able to give the figure a mustache that he never had. Or like on Cobra Commander, I gave him the Mickey Mouse chest logo and painted gloves on his card art. Like, just little fun Easter egg stuff that I thought the really hardcore fans would appreciate.
How did you paint these, by the way?
I don't have the photo, obviously, to show myself, but these are all totally traditional. They're all gouache, acrylic, and colored pencil, with the exception of the logos and the bubble.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I need to get some gouache.
Yeah, it was fun to play with. It was a lot of work, though, because I think that I had already been doing action figure packaging at this point, but it was like a very strange thing to try and paint a flat card and a 3-dimensional figure sitting atop that card, like in traditional media. So.
True.
Yeah.
And did you use the fire is different on everyone, or is that taken from the card, the original card art?
They're all pretty similar to the originals, as much as I could get them. Yeah, I mean, I think they wanted them to be totally straight homage, which I'm a little mixed on, honestly. Like, part of me would have rather have just done something wholly original or even new stuff. Like, I wanted to do vehicle drivers on single cards, but you do what you're told.
That ties into the Silent Interlude too, paying homage or copying.
Absolutely, yeah.
So here's a question. Here's a good question for everybody. From Diana says, on a side note, I always had fun imagining what Snake Eyes was pointing at in his original card art.
That is fun.
Any guesses?
I would say an enemy for sure, or a snow-covered cliff to climb or something.
Maybe desperately wants somebody to pull his finger, but he can't say it.
He's doing the Babe Ruth thing where he like targets where he's going to shoot. He's
calling
like tipping the hat to where he's going to like.
Or in billiards, like calling the corner, the pocket.
Yep.
Takes guts.
Cool. Very good. So how did anyone get into G.I. Joe? What was your first experience of G.I. Joe, and specifically, what was your first experience of the Silent Interlude issue? And maybe if we start, sort of keep with you for a second, Adam, because you either look sort of incredibly youthful, or possibly you got into G.I. Joe slightly a slightly different period to the rest of us. Because I guess in terms of when that golden period hit and how old a typical toy consumer was, There's a bracket there, I think, for the typical G.I. Joe enthusiast. So yeah, curious to hear how you first encountered it, because it might not have been in '82.
I didn't exist in '82. I think I'm sort of a second wave G.I. Joe fan. I think if you look at the fandom online, it's really like there's that like 82 to 88-ish window, and then there's that like 89 to 94, and I definitely fall more into that bracket. So the first figures I remember getting as a kid were probably, I don't know the exact date, but let's say like late 89, early 90, somewhere about there. I definitely would have come into the brand probably by way of the Deke cartoon. I don't know if I was the cartoon or figures first. Comic definitely was after. I think it was just one of those things, though, that it's like once I found it, I was instantly hooked. And unlike a lot of kids that, go through changes and outgrow things and stuff, I didn't. I never, ever stopped G.I. Joe, ever. So that's how this happened. And I think that it was an interesting thing because in a pre-internet world, like I'm watching these reruns of Sunbow and I'm picking up back issues and I'm wondering, why are there not toys of all these obvious characters that there should be, like Destro and Baroness, you know? And so then it started to become, you know, newspaper classifieds, flea markets, yard sales, comic book stores. And that's when I started, you know, hitting up friends' older brothers. And this is how I eventually started to piece together all the stuff that I was missing. But yeah, and kind of same deal with the comic. Like, I don't remember exactly what my jump on point was, but I definitely have distinct memories of finding like random back issues and like multi-packs or like pharmacies, grocery store, stuff like that. So it really wasn't until much later, like probably in my early 20s, that I was actually able to read the story in continuity, because like at the time I was only able to find what I could find, you know, so I had handfuls of
one
just,
issue here, one
random
issue there.
issues. Yep. So, you know, between that and file cards, there you go. So that's that's probably right around the time that I jump on. I mean, I'm obviously those issues are before that photo is probably around 1994, if I had to guess. So those issues are probably already 3 or 4 years old at that point. So not sure where I got them, but you know, I'm proud of childhood me for knowing to bag and board his stuff even then. That's why I still have those very issues to this day.
I like the headband too.
Yeah, I don't know if I was going for a quick kick or what was happening there, but you can spot a battle copter and a piranha in the background there, so it's at least 1993.
and clock that, yeah.
Yeah.
And you sent me another photo.
Oh.
Let's share that at the same time.
Yeah, so just ignore my bad hiking sandals, but this was on the front page of a newspaper in 2005. This is just a little more nerd cred. I was digging through quarter bins trying to piece together the final remnants of my collection then. So it's been a real lifelong love affair with all things G.I. Joe, but the comic took a real long time just because the avenues to acquire them weren't quite as easy.
That looks fun.
Oh, and the guy that's sitting there right now is still my best friend to this day. And a fun fact for the viewers, that ultimately became the model for what would become my packaging art for the Ghost Rider Jonas Jeffries figure 20 years later. So.
Cool. I was only looking at that just a little bit earlier. Excellent. So if we continue down the column. So Casey, what about you? What was your sort of into G.I. Joe, and specifically, when did you first encounter issue 21?
I would say I'm kind of in a weird bracket too. I was born in '81, so it was definitely peaking around then, I would say. But I was too young for it.
Yeah.
Then I was too old for the later stuff too. I feel like when that all blew up too. But I definitely had toys and stuff. I liked the cartoons and everything, even if I was a bit young for them. But I remember playing with all the toys and stuff. I never got into the comics, actually. I did read Silent Interlude years ago and really like it just because I like pantomime stories, like no words sometimes. So that one really stuck with me. So I was happy to be able to draw a page from it, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm not much of a collector of things. I don't have toys. I've got comics and stuff, but I did miss the G.I. Joe comics, unfortunately. But I'm learning to appreciate them now, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So Andrew, what was your in for the G.I. Joe comics, and specifically, when did you first encounter issue 21?
Well, I was first into the toys. I remember that was my first exposure. I saw them on a store shelf and got my parents to get me some for my birthday. And then the comics, I don't think had been out yet. And my first experience with the comics was my cousins always were a little bit older than me. And they had imported Japanese robot toys and Micronauts and things that were just a little bit before me. And they had some of the early G.I. Joe issues. So when we go to visit their house, I'd read some of those issues and stuff. But my first G.I. Joe issue was 23 or 24, the one with when they go to the swamp and meet Zartan and stuff, that era.
Right.
And I but I don't remember exactly where Silent Interlude kind of popped up in my life. My brother had a copy of it early on, so I probably just kind of read that as much as I could, and just remember it being a classic groundbreaking issue, but I don't remember one specific moment where I discovered it,
But I'm guessing that in the intervening years, you've sort of have digested it and probably left an impression once
sure.
It did.
And I don't know why, but I always had this interest in like recreating old classic comics. Like for some reason, like the original like Marvel Secret Wars, I always thought it'd be fun to like kind of redraw those issues or like classic G.I. Joe issues. So like when this came along, this project, it was like perfect for me because it's something I kind of always wanted to do. Not that I felt that I could improve on the original, but just for the pure fun of like recreating it, I guess.
Right. It's, yeah, thought that's already percolating. Sounds perfect. James, what about you? When did you first get the G.I. Joe comics on your radar, and did you encounter issue 21 specifically at some point before this?
Well, my original G.I. Joe experience was the 12-inch G.I. Joes. I was born in the 60s, so my G.I. Joes were the full-size dolls with kung fu grip and fuzzy realistic hair. So and I had all of the G.I. Joe toys and equipment and costumes, and it was a blast. So the G.I. Joe comics of the 80s, I wasn't reading G.I. Joe comics in the 80s. I was reading other books, but G.I. Joe wasn't one of them. But when I started working on Joe professionally, when I started coloring the book, you can't be a G.I. Joe artist and not be familiar with what the silent issue is and what it means to Joe comics. So, and I read it early on, and I understood how significant it was and how unique it was, and being able to sort of do another version of it all these years later is just an honor, actually.
Yeah, I've got in the comments, Scotty has chipped in, and this is sort of interesting, and it's talking to, I guess, the 40th anniversary aspect of this, that the intergenerational side of things, that you can be sort of encountering G.I. Joe at so many different points and iterative elements of it, sort of across the years, that it could be the 12-inch that Jay was talking about. It could be right in that peak of 82 when things were being launched. Could have been later on in the Neon era, or like Scott, it could have even been later on when he said the starting point was seeing Sigma 6 on Monday mornings, then finding Marvel G.I. Joe comics at a yard sale, and then later sort of interacting with the Rise of Cobra movie, and then seeing some of the disavowed, the Devil's Due era stuff. So and then finding, yes, the Silent Interlude much later. So I think we've all come at this thing, from different eras potentially, and different routes to finding it. So getting back on track to this 40th anniversary issue itself. What was the first point that you found out about it, and what was that process like? Did they give you a list of what was still available to choose, or and how long were you given? So that's a number of questions, but maybe you can. I'll remind you if we're not covering them. So Adam, what was the process like for finding out about this project?
So I was prepared for this question, so I actually went and looked. So the night of January 21st was when I first heard about this. I don't think it had been solicited yet. I'm pretty sure. Otherwise, I would have known, because I'm a G.I. Joe reader as well as somebody that works on it. I started drawing it 3 days later on the 24th. I was wrapped by February 9th. Book was out April 13th. So fast, I guess, is the short answer to all of your questions. At the time that I was contacted, I was basically said all in one email, which I imagine was a form letter that we probably all got, said, this is what it is. Do you want to work on it? This is the rate. This is the deadline. And at that time, it was like, everything's available, first come, first serve. And there was a PDF of the whole book, which I certainly didn't need because I have like 20 copies of it. But if at that time, so everything was up for grabs. So I wrote back in like all of 2 seconds. I was shopping at a Target with my girlfriend at the time I received that email, and said, yes, and yes. And this would be priority 1. This would be priority 2. And I think the 2 pages they requested were the one I got, or the final page where the tattoo is revealed, which I think Ron Joseph ultimately got.
Yeah. So first come, first get in quick. Yeah. Excellent. Casey, what what about you?
Oh, I can corroborate all that. I got the same email in front of me and everything on the evening of the 21st.
Yeah.
And I asked for 22.
Yeah.
and then 7 because 22 got taken. But I was happy with 7.
Okay.
Very happy with
Excellent.
7. And I finished mine on inks and everything. Took me like 4 days or something, I think, till inked it and everything. Send it off. So pretty quick turnaround. I don't know. Yeah, there was a deadline, I think, but it wasn't plenty of time. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Andrew, what about you? Did you were you able to get in there with your list pretty quick smart before all of these other whippersnappers picked up their favorite choices?
I had heard about it like months ahead of time because I was working on what's it called? What was it? Murder by Assassination. Yeah. And I realized, this year was going to be the 40th anniversary. So I had emailed Tom, the editor, and I was like, if you guys are doing anything for the 40th, like I'd love to do like, I don't know, like a wraparound cover or a big battle scene or something. Like I had done a huge, big Transformers like commission that has like 100 some characters on, kind of like the things that Adam was showing there. And I'd love to do something like that with G.I. Joe, like a big battle or something. But like I was thinking something like that could be cool. But he said, well, we have plans for a 40th anniversary thing. So when that comes along, we'll definitely get back to you. And then like he was saying, just that email went out with a PDF and, pick what pages you'd be interested in. And I like responded as quickly as I could. I thought I'd really want to do the first page, but I figured that would be taken. So I didn't even pick that. So I did others. And they got back and they said, sure, you can do 22. So that was fine. But I was just starting to work on that October Guard issue, 290, I guess. And then I was busy with that. So I said, can I have some extra time? And a week or two later, they got back and like, sorry, we kind of mixed things up and double billed page 22. And Ron Joseph has it. So do you want to pick another page? There's 1 or 2 that are still available. So they gave me I could pick from what was left. So so that's why, like in the back of the book, they said, well, what we can do is throw in, if you want to still draw up what you would have done for 22, we can throw that in the back of some pencils. So
yeah, I can. While we're talking about it, I can flick to that particular page. I think it was. There we go. 20.
Oh yeah.
So here we go. It's this one on the left here. So in the back of the book, there's this sort of like little sketchbook section which it sort of shows off some some process pages and things like that. But it sort of prompts the question. It's like, oh, we've got an extra page here as a bonus content, which is the only page that I guess we've got twice. So it's very cool to see it. So that's the story. Is that you end
claw there? I was using as reference. That was my original one. Like in '83 is like an Easter gift or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah, grab from your Twitter feed there. That's your childhood claw. That's fantastic.
But the Scarlet was one of those straight arm ones I was recollecting during the pandemic on eBay.
And in the middle, as well, we're looking at as well. This was this incredible Scarlet commission that I don't know. This must be a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
now is it?
A few years back before I had done any G.I. Joe issues. Yeah, just for some reason I was suddenly getting a batch of like G.I. Joe commissions coming in.
I love that.
That's really good.
Yeah.
No, you know what that was? I know what that was. When the pandemic first happened, everything locked down. There was that charity thing where comic artists did pieces for comic stores to help keep them open and stuff. And I put up like as an option like a G.I. Joe character, a Transformers character, and like a superhero team or something. And that was the G.I. Joe one. That's what that was.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, a lovely bit of synchronicity as well, that we've got this kind of silent interlude adjacent piece that that you produced. Which they should have put that as a bonus in the book, shouldn't they? But there we go. Can't do that. And we've got a comment just come in. It's breaking news. I think I'm the only one missing out on a beard here. So I don't know.
As long as it's
I need a few more days off work, I think, to work on that.
It's just the comic artist lifestyle,
Cool.
Reclusive.
Yeah, we're all with Obi-Wan Kenobi here.
Living in caves.
And then Jay, of course, you didn't get to pick a page because you had to do them all. So
Yeah, I'm greedy like that.
Mm.
Tom Waltz, our editor, informed me this year I'd be loaded up with as much Joe as I could handle. So I'm fortunate that I got my hands on all of them, which was fantastic to be able to do. Yeah, that's I didn't have to choose one particular page, so that was kind of a special treat.
excellent.
But I feel like
And
it needed you as a common thread through all of them as well to kind of tie it all together.
For sure.
Because
That definitely happens, but it would have also been interesting to see 22 different color styles or different
True.
rendering styles. I mean, that would have worked as well, but there's something to be said for unifying palette and style that sort of
Yeah. It helps with the
But
storytelling for
try
sure.
to adapt. I try to adapt to all the different art styles that are in the book too, so it would look good with. I try to have the color style work with every artist's particular talent and style.
I'm curious what
So-
your turnaround time was like, knowing that there was some people that waited so long to submit their page. Did you have like 3 days to finish the whole book? Or
Let's just say I don't sleep a whole lot, so
yeah.
yeah. I mean, the pages didn't come in order, but that wasn't a big deal because we knew what the book was going to be. We knew what would happen from page 17 to page 18, and to know exactly what the scene would be in the story. But then you get the page from so many different art styles. It's trying to make sure that what you do ends up honoring what the artist wanted to bring forth. So, but yeah, I mean, I've heard people talk about the color palette as being a unifying factor in the whole book, which I'm glad people see that, and I'm glad it works.
Can I ask, did you find yourself like trying to stick to the original or trying to do your own different thing, or was there any like pressure there for you as far as trying
there was no pressure because Tom just left it to me. He didn't express any specific preference for the way to go. But that was a big question because, the colors you could see in the book are the limited palette of the time. And some of the color choices are just very extreme. In some cases, they're just very simple. So I had to choose between going with what the original showed and replicating that, or going with something that might be a little bit more modern or more consistent in the storytelling. And I just decided to go with the more realistic style that I go with in the regular books, which is using color to help tell the story, but have it be fitting with what you see in the art. So I went realistic rather than homage to the classic book. I hope it works.
I love
Yeah,
the old
I mean-
coloring style, just the simple color plates and stuff. Like it's like
Yeah.
pop art almost. Like this sunburst here looks like the packaging.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's so cool.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that's
just like
the
that.
explosion on the top of the stairs.
Yeah, no
of,
gradients or anything, just like cut out.
If you line that up with the background that's on you right now, you can make the whole screen an explosion.
Yeah. Explosions everywhere. Just like lots of yellow. So cool. Like this one, Storm Shadow is just yellow and white in that one.
Right.
Really cool.
Yeah, that's
Simple
much
choices.
faster to do. I'll tell you that. Flat color is definitely faster, but it's not as easy as it seems. People think, oh, flat color, it's an easy gig.
Yeah.
No, it's not as simple as that.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, I guess as well, sort of differentiating the color from the original makes it more of. I guess it makes it the modern retelling, but also differentiates it from that original. We've still got the original issue 21 that exists. So by coloring it in the kind of the more modern style, it's I guess making this more of a piece of it itself, and particularly with some of the pages skewing. There's quite a different variety of kind of ways that people interpreted these pages. But so on one end of the spectrum, they're being the artists being very faithful and making tweaks to make it into their own style, and then on others it's like change up everything, the composition, the panel layouts, everything. And on that spectrum where it's much more faithful, having, I guess, the color as being different is an element that makes it more of, differentiates it, I guess. It makes it more its own thing.
Right.
Here we
The
go.
modernized version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that same panel.
That looks great.
I don't know if I haven't seen or read too many reviews of that issue, but I don't know. Has anyone encountered people sort of hating the change in whether it be art or composition or color? I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything negative.
I think the response overall has been pretty positive from what I've seen, and that's kind of a rarity, honestly. Because I think that everyone knows it's an anniversary book. You're never going to replace the original. I think that we all came into this certainly knowing that. But I think the way you handled the colors was really the only way to handle something like this, because art styles are not what they were then. I think that back then line weight was so much heavier, inking was so much heavier because they were compensating for the limited color palette. And I think that you have a lot of artists now that don't ink at all, that use very light line weight because they're expecting the colors to carry the heavy lifting. So if you didn't approach it the way you did, the book would look totally disjointed. Like, some people totally over render things to the point of photorealism, and some of them are like barely filled in at all. So you kind of needed someone to come in and handle that.
Yeah, I think to that point, we were talking to Billy Penn about his page, and in the original, this falling trooper's eyes, didn't have that same pop. But I think the printing color technology at the time meant that actually it wouldn't be able to cope with that level of subtlety in the coloring process. Sorry, Jay, I think you were about to reply, and then I talked over the top of you.
No, that's a good point about the eyes too. I mean, big wide open eyes that you have to zoom in and make sure that they pop for the reader. That was a fun page.
Diana had a question for you about the coloring. So the question was, is there any difference in coloring so many different styles to coloring a single artist? Do you think you approached it in any sort of different way for trying to accommodate all of these different styles of art?
Definitely, because they're, with all the different art styles present in the book, different art styles. Adam makes a great point about different inking and line weight. So every page was a different artist, and I wanted to make sure that the way I colored it didn't sort of get in the way of what the artist was trying to do, or that obscured what they were trying to do. I mean, one good example is, say Keizama's page. Very, very different style of, very graphic, harsh inks. Much different than, say, something that, Nitho did, which is more traditional comic superhero style art. So I just wanted the color to not hurt it, not interfere with what the artist was trying to do, and it always comes back to telling the story, using the color not to show what great Photoshop skills you have, or not to show how you can use such a filter to make something look, jazzy. It's using the color to help tell the story, and to be part of the team, like everyone else is trying to tell a good story.
Do you use mostly Photoshop?
Yeah, exclusively. I mean, I started out back in the old days in the 90s, when I was working for Valiant or Milestone or Defiant or Marvel, with Dr. Martin's dyes, hand painting colors that you used in a color guide or were shot directly from the boards. And then things changed in the 90s, and you had to keep up. And I taught myself Photoshop, and I think that is probably what most colorists use for digital coloring, though there are different programs being used now too. Clip Studio Paint, I think, is pretty popular too. But being able to work digitally, it's kind of fun to be able to zoom in and really get detail done. But then again, that means you spend a lot of time zooming in and spending time on it. So sometimes I miss the old sable hair brush, and just the way watercolor soaks into paper, and the happy accidents you get when you touch the brush to the wrong color in the wrong way.
Yeah.
You got.
Yeah, sure.
It's that analog goodness.
Yeah.
I guess as well, Jay, you're kind of the guy at the end of the production line as well. You and the letterer. So I guess that must put on pressures of his own that where maybe the book is running slightly behind, that they kind of crack the whip a little bit to get to the final deadline.
Yeah, it's expected. You know, going in that's the production process, and I've been getting books to the printer and made deadlines met for a long time, and you know pretty much what you have to get done in a given day to keep your schedule, keep your deadlines. But to my pleasure and to Tom Waltz's credit, I never feel pressured unnecessarily, or if I get some sort of schedule bump or change, Tom's always he's always a professional about it, and I never feel abused. But there are realities of monthly publishing that you just the printing schedule at a certain point forgives no one. So but I think people delivered these pages timely. There were always pages coming in, and I stayed on top of it because I hate feeling like I have to pull an all-nighter or a rush any artist's page, because they put plenty of time and love into the page. I wouldn't want to rush through it.
I guess there was probably a steady drip of the pages as the individual artists were completing them on their own slightly different schedules, and the benefit there wasn't 22 pages all from the same person all landing on the same day.
Yeah, that's the advantage of having files digital up on a server, where you can grab them instantly, and you're not waiting for the newest FedEx box nightmare that we've probably all experienced or heard about in the past.
Do you think the sort of the deadline, which presumably can vary quite a lot, do you think it impacts how you approach coloring a particular page, or do you think that you end up with much the same result, that you don't necessarily vary things too much, that you've still got your same way of doing things?
You have to plan. How much time a page is going to take, and how much time a page needs to have spent on it to look good. So I want the book to look consistently good from month to month, and you've got artists who do different levels of detail, who do different levels of backgrounds, and you might know that there are pages coming in that will go faster because they're composed and such, where they're more fewer characters in a panel, or whether it's a heavy background detail intensive. So you want to make sure you've got time to get the page done right. But I've been doing this long enough where I can sort of plan accordingly and just work a little extra, so everybody gets the pages done on time, but you're not pulling all-nighters. I don't color that well at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No, if you're anything like me, the sort of, I guess the monitor starts getting a little bit swimmy after a little while. So yeah, I imagine you can only do so much. Let's get into the detail of some of these pages then. So the first one in order is Adam's. So I guess the common kind of question when that you guys sort of must have had when presented with this challenge is, how on earth do I approach this? How do I make it different enough that it's not just tracing the original page, and but it's still doing, it's different enough, but it's still honoring the original kind of issue. So did you this idea for this page of using action figures in the art, is that one that sort of arrived fully formed for you, Adam?
I probably actually had this idea for 20 years prior to this assignment. I don't remember like the exact date that I first read Silent Interlude, but I do remember the first time I ever saw this page, I totally tripped out. I was like, Destro has action figures, like
Yeah.
I don't play chess, but in my mind that was immediately where this went. And it was just one of those things that I was like, I don't know if I like willed this into existence. I never thought this book would actually be a thing, but like I remember when Dead Game #5 came out and all those different artists got to ink over Rob's pencils, thinking, man, I wish I could have been a part of it, just because it's such a fun idea to do this big, huge collaborative jam thing with a G.I. Joe project. And so I think that's why I just immediately, like, I already knew what page number this was. Like, that's how I was able to reply to that email so quickly. Like, I just... this idea had already been marinating in there forever. I mean, in some form. I didn't know exactly how I was going to execute it, but the idea of having the chess pieces be figures was sort of something that was always in the back of my mind. And then I think immediately after agreeing to it, I think the only other real follow-up before starting the project was, can we see a layout? And I thought about that for like all of 5 minutes and said, the layout is Larry's. Like, it would be just the hubris it would take to think that you're going to ever outdo the composition of, Larry's seminal G.I. Joe work. So I just, like, there was no way. So I had to stick as close as possible to that, which of course did present sort of a unique challenge because he has them in poses that aren't really very easily achievable with figures that have fairly limited articulation in some cases, especially like, Baroness obviously has like a very feminine, slender figure and the figure does not. So finding ways to kind of make that work compositionally was a little bit of a challenge and sort of a funny thing, but here it is.
Here we go.
Wow. Oh, that's great.
So, you wouldn't really think that this would be all that difficult to execute. Like, I knew I really wanted to do it traditionally just because it's just like, I knew I only had the one page and it was going to be a special issue. And I was like, this is something I really want to have an original of. What I did not realize, and my camera's probably not even good enough resolution to pick this up, though, is trying to achieve this all on one page with all the little like rivets and screws and stuff was an absolute nightmare. Especially this panel. I think I did most of that in like 0.05 mechanical pencil, which is why I didn't end up inking this. I think this might be the only page in the book from what I've seen that is entirely pencil. It's not inked digitally or traditionally. And originally it was my intention to try and ink it traditionally, but as I started to really get in there tight on the details, I think I got really just scared. I was completely I was like, I am totally going to botch this. I just know it. Like, I was like, I had all the microns laid out and I'm like, do I really want to try this? Like, this is a tight deadline. Like, if I blow this is going to look awful because then I'm going to have this page that's like half ink, half pencil, and I'm going to be trying to like recover from this mess. So yeah, it's as much as I could, it's all pencil, but then you start to get, and this is why I was asking James the questions about how he handled the different coloring styles with the different line weights and stuff, because then it becomes a matter of, do I imply that these are figures and try to make it sort of more comic booky, for lack of a better term, or do I really just like render the hell out of this and go for photorealism? Because that's the only way that you can really, really for sure convey that these are like plastic toys and they're not, that it's not just like poorly drawn people. One of my best instructors I ever had in art school said, if you're going to draw something stylized, it better read as so off model that there's no way you could mistake it, because otherwise it's just going to look like you don't know how to draw. And that's always been like very deeply implanted into my psyche. So I think because of that, I was like, well, I gotta make it so obvious that these are, toys. And so that's why this is like no ambiguity. I mean, that is basically 100% copied from a photo. Like, I had to get every highlight and shadow right on that one. Some of them, obviously, there's a little more wiggle room. Like, these three characters do not exist as O-ring figures. So that was sort of a stylistic choice, as they did ultimately get action figures much later, like 20 years later, but they wouldn't fit in with the rest of them. And so I guess that's an interesting thing to talk about, was trying to decide, do I want this to match the aesthetic of what this book would have looked like as if this was drawn in 1984? Or do I want to treat this modern? And ultimately, I thought just for the 40th anniversary and for the nostalgia and stuff, it would really play better to have these be O-ring figures. So that's why I went with that approach. But then obviously those characters didn't exist, so I had to kind of imagine what they would look like as O-ring figures. And I guess there are some other interesting choices too. Like for the posability, I specifically chose to go with the swivel arm version of some of those characters, like Scarlet, even though, you know, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Cobra Commander, like they all have straight arm figures. But I made everyone swivel arm because I thought, A, it helps me to get the poses better, and B, if this was coming out in 1984, that's kind of closer to what we would have had. Trying to think if there's anything else really noteworthy on here. I purposely made Destro a little off center in the top panel from the original, just so that it read a little bit different and so that it wasn't too symmetrical. The bottom panel is very, very similar to Larry's original. Like, to be honest, by far my least interesting panel on the page, you know. And it's funny because for many years, I sort of felt pigeonholed in comics as the toy guy, because there were so many publishers that only whoever wanted to use me for action figure variant covers. It's one of those things where it's like I felt like maybe I got too much of a reputation from working in toys and comics, and you know, obviously having an affinity for it, that I just kept doing it. But like, it got to a point where I was like, I really don't want to do any more toy covers for a while. But then as soon as they offered me this, I'm like, hey, let's make them toys, you know. But I think it was just like, I felt like personally there was no way that I could really in any significant way improve upon anything that had been done in the original issue. So the only other thing I could think to do with it was, well, what's something that honors the original but is, you know, would be a surprise for the fans. It's sort of a out of left field. It doesn't really alter the story content in any way, but it gives you a fun visual. So I think that's kind of where this all came from. And I guess the only other maybe little thing is that I think I might be either the only one or one of very few people that signed their page. And I can't remember who did it. I want to say it was Tom Scioli, but I totally stole that from Dead Game, because when I was looking through that book with all those jam pages, I was like, oh, you could sign a page? Like, you know, so, and when I realized it made it to print, I was like, well, why not? So, but yeah, I think that covers it.
In terms of process, so did you lay this out digitally and then print it in Blue Line? And
no, so there's no Blue Line. Lightbox for a lot of it. I mean, some of it is just totally my own take. Like Destro in panel 4 is totally me. I used my own hand as a reference for the panel 2 and 3 because obviously it's a slightly different vantage point than Larry's original. Same with panel 5. That's totally me. The actual figures are really where it got into the more tricky, like, staging of actual figures, photographs, lightboxing, just trying to, like, especially that first panel and the second panel was just such a difficult thing to try and achieve and not have it look wonky. Because, like, it's one of those things that I think when you're dealing with flat color and a more simplified line style, you can really get away with murder as far as like perspective and stuff and not having it look strange. But when you start getting into real serious, like heavy rendering, it starts to look very wonky to the eye. Like you can just tell something's off. So trying to get that perspective believable, but also not straying too far from Larry's original page layout was definitely a challenge, especially in panel 2, because like that perspective just it isn't entirely accurate. Like between having those figures be standing and laying down and still getting that exact angle. So a lot of it was like compositing, like taking multiple photos, playing around with them in Photoshop, playing around with perspective, and just trying to sort of cobble together something that I thought really worked, and then lightboxing that, and then just once I kind of had that layout figured out, just spending a small eternity rendering and just trying to kind of clean it up to where it looked normal and natural to me, and not too photo referenced, even though it obviously is. Just trying to like get it to look believable without just looking like I took a photo of toys, you know, trying to, I was serving many masters, at least in my own mind. I was really trying to do Larry justice. I was trying to give something to the fans, like, and I think this is something a lot of comic artists, and especially if you're an actual fan of the series you're working on, and if you're only doing one page, it was like the most deadly of combinations, because the way they presented it to us is like, oh, you should just be able to crank this out. Jam, man, it's only one page. And I'm like, no, it's the complete opposite. It's only one page. So now I'm like way overstressed and I have to get it perfect. Like, you know, I don't want to be the one page in the book that isn't good. Like, you know, so.
And it
I don't
looked
know.
like it was. It looked like it was was it A2 size? It looked like a big oversized.
Yeah,
board.
it's a standard panel. I think it's 11 by 17. I think it's standard like blue line page.
Oh right, okay,
Yep.
okay.
It's
I
I mean
thought-
I'm 6'5", if that gives you any perspective. It's quite large.
Okay,
But it's
cool.
worth, I think that
Page
the
was a
O-ring
bit of a
figure is
dilemma.
just the highlight of the book for me.
Oh, thank you, man.
Nice.
Brilliant decision.
And
I like the GI Joe logo on top too. That's like drawn in there, right?
Yeah,
On the top
that
of
was
the page.
that was the this is going on Heritage Auctions in 30 years for 100 grand. Got to make it look yeah.
That looks good.
every last thing, yeah.
Every last thing, yeah.
I
I
was
like
wondering,
changing its colors on it too. Lots of texture on the colors,
Yeah.
especially the marbled chessboard and everything.
This was kind of a dilemma. I remember with this page. First of all, Adam, the scan, everything came out in the scan. It was a really nice, clean page, and it looked like all the details were showing up. So that's one thing that really helped bring it through was the scan got all of your fine details really well. But I also remember this was a dilemma to approach because I saw it was action figures, and I kind of like the whole chessboard aspect. White and black pieces. And I knew I really wanted to go for that clear difference between, the good guys and the bad guys, the light and the dark. But you drew all these great action figures with, full articulation.
Yeah.
And I had a dilemma do I replicate what's in the original book and go with the actual character costumes? But then I thought that with the combination of that and the action figure, that they might end up looking too toy, especially if I was going to go with very simple flat color, because you get so much great rendering detail there. So it was a dilemma. Do I go with black and white, or do I go with realistic colors? I chose the black and white because I like the whole chess aspect, but this is one of those pages where I question whether I made the right choice there, whether it would have done better by what you drew, going with the actual character colors. But I don't know. I did what I did.
Yeah, I think it's I'm trying to see in the book here. I think it's page 6, Dan Schoening's page. There's actually those chess pieces. I don't know if you can see it. It's very small, but they make another appearance right here, a few pages before my page, and that was something I wasn't sure about as I was doing that. Was I wondered, because that was the other thing. None of us, unless you happen to be friends with somebody that was working on it, and it came up in conversation. We didn't know who else was working on this at what time.
Sure.
And so I didn't know when I started approaching this as action figures. Like, I thought that would be fun, but I was like, I wonder who's got page 6, and is it going to be just like a little obscured background detail, or is it going to be really obvious? Because if they handle it totally differently than I do, you're going to have a continuity problem. And so that was a question I always wondered about when it came to coloring, was like, did you have to know, because you were getting the pages out of order, did you have to know how somebody was approaching another page like that to inform you how to handle another one?
I didn't because worst comes to worst, I would have had the opportunity to make the change. Print. I mean, an artist is committing pen to paper, and it's really difficult to make major changes. But if it's a color change, it's a bit of work, but it's doable, especially if it's digital. So that didn't matter as much. But that previous page, with figures that tiny, it would have been difficult to have every bit of the figure match the costume color. So sometimes distance equals detail in coloring, especially. You don't want to just over render things that are going to be tiny at print size. Yeah. So that didn't matter as much. Ultimately.
Which one did you color first?
Say again?
Which one did you color first?
Oh, jeez. Let me look. Hold on. First.
I was also wondering, Jay, if to what extent the fact that Adam had done this in pencil, to what extent that made a difference to the way that you approach the coloring process.
I think I did Adam's page first. The fact that it was done in pencil didn't matter as much, because what happens is in the process, when you take your scan and you add the colors underneath it or on top of it, and then you put it all together, everything, sometimes problematically, but everything darkens up. So you don't want things to look too blobby, and the fine details of the art gets lost because people are spending time on that. But no, the fact that it was pencil, especially the way Adam did it, I mean, it's nice, tight, dense pencil, and everything shows up. It's not sketchy or looking like things are faint, everything's strong on the page, even if it is a pencil page.
Okay, and we had, I think, one more question on this from Diana. She says, how many messages have you had, Adam, offering to buy the page?
Genuinely a lot, like
Wow.
at least 20. But
Ooh.
I've let go so many of my originals over the years that I think when I see guys like Walt Simonson or Eric Larson that have retained all their originals over the years, and like obviously this is an anniversary book and it's a derivative work, so it's never going to have that same impact that the original Silent Interlude has, of course. But and G.I. Joe fandom now is not what it was in '84. I fully acknowledge all that, but like I think I've gotten a little more hip to like, unless I need to keep the lights on that month, like I shouldn't just be letting the stuff go the second I finish it, because you just never know. And like, but also completely separate of the more practical, boring adult reasons. Like I'm a fan and I love G.I. Joe, and it was something that I would have dreamed of doing this page forever. So like the fact that I actually got to do it, like I'm not really one to have like a whole museum of my own stuff everywhere, but like I am proud of this page and I'm happy to have the original. And if somebody comes along with an offer one day that, boggles my mind, like I'd consider it, but I'm not in any rush to sell it. So, whenever I tell people like, I'd consider it, but I'm not really looking to, and they say, well, give me a ballpark. And I do, that ends that conversation real quick. So I'm very happy to just own it for the time being.
It seems unlikely that someone else is going to treasure it as much as you are, to be honest.
Well, they certainly don't. They will never in their collective lifetime spend as much time admiring it as I did drawing it. So if we're going by that, it's probably better staying with me for the time being.
And Andrew, your page is framed and on your wall, right next to your guitar. So I guess
it's one of the few pieces like I decided to keep for myself, and I'm not even happy with my page. So it's like, but it's just having to take part in this. It was so cool for me that I kept it for that reason.
Yeah, I think framing it is an expression of intent that at least you're going to be holding on to it for a little while.
I moved back into my house after years overseas, and like I just had a bunch of stuff that I always wanted to get framed and actually put up and make it look like a nice space. So that was part of that. I was like, I wanted different things representing different of my interests and parts of my career and so forth.
And while we're on this subject, Casey, where's your page currently residing?
Not with me. It did get sold. It got shipped up north, so I don't have my page. But I was kind of thinking, but that was going to happen anyways.
I had a few people like offer it, even like sight unseen. Like before this even came out, they said that a few people emailed me like, "We see you're going to be on this. Would you sell your page?" And I turned them down. But yeah,
now I got enough. I worry about the art in my house. Like, if it's going to get destroyed or something, like someone else is going to take better care of it than I will. I'll tell you that. And I can always draw another one if I wanted to. So, I mean, I do treasure them. I got plenty of art stored away in places and stuff but I don't know. I like having art go out and live a life somewhere separate from me. Like, I don't know. Rather than stuffed in a drawer in my bedroom,
I feel that. I think part of the thing for me was specifically with keeping this one is that it's so rare I actually get to do an original for G.I. Joe. Like most of the G.I. Joe work I've done is digital. So I think that was another reason why it was kind of cool to...
I went through a phase of doing digital, but now I try to do all analog just because like it is nice to have it. Like, to make it in front of you. And I draw better analog, I feel like, too.
Have any of you had the situation where you sold a piece and then unexpectedly years later you saw it?
I just got into the game of selling stuff. Like no one has really wanted my stuff until G.I. Joe, so I don't really have much stuff out there.
I did a convention in Australia, and a friend invited me to stay at his place. And like I went into his office, he was showing me his collection of his geek stuff, and like here one of my pages was on his wall that I forgot I had even done, like in 2014 or something.
Wow.
I forgot that page existed.
Cool.
I got friends with my art, but not like comic book art. Mostly commissions and stuff, but not like published art, I would say.
It's always nice when people like share on social media like commissions you do on framed on their walls and stuff too. That's nice. Unless
you don't like it, and then you're like, please take that down. Yeah.
always
hide
the
it.
case.
I've heard that story of people of artists who sort of every time one like their very early work, comes along for a signing, I can't believe people love like this stuff. I feel.
Yeah,
The next thing you do is always going to be better than the thing you did before.
You do those like free comic book day sketches that you're churning out like 40 in one day, giving them to kids and stuff, and then you see it turn up like years later on Twitter or something, and it's like in this place of reverence in their house, and it's like a napkin doodle to you, and you're like, oof, I can't believe my name's on that.
Glad to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And no matter what I do, the more time that passes, the less happy I am with it. So.
Always, yeah.
True.
Okay, let's have a look at your page, Casey. Yours is page 7, which is the one of Snake Eyes parachuting down and landing on the Cobra sigil. That kind of shot was turned into a statue, the Snake Eyes and the Cobra Snake statue. So yeah, it's sort of, I guess, interesting that it's a very similar layout in terms of the panel structure, but it's a kind of it feels like a kind of a more modern take on it, and you're trying to do something subtly different in each of those panels.
Well, it's like Adam said, the layout's like, you don't want to change the layout. It's perfect, like anything I would do to it would just screw it up. And so I mainly just tweaked the perspective, I would say. Like Snake Eyes coming more at you in the first panel. I think the third panel's tilted up a bit more. The fourth panel's tilted up more, and the third panel's tilted down more. And the second panel's pretty much, I guess, zoomed out a little bit. But yeah, this one I just wanted to do super like heavy ink, like it's all brush. I don't think I used pen anywhere. I don't think. I might have done some of the lines on the snake for the hatching or something. But yeah, I went out and bought just the biggest piece of watercolor paper I could find because I wanted a nice textured surface. So it just soaked up all the ink. So I used a lot of ink on it. So it's super black. It's like the super thick black ink that I love. Yeah, and I just wanted, it's like, I feel like it's the most silent page of Silent Interlude too. Like there's no sound. Like even, you would never put any sound effects in it. It's just like heavy black and just sneaking and being Snake Eyes. And I just wanted Snake Eyes all to myself too. But I did a little,
Snake Eyes.
I modeled the statue in ZBrush, just like to look change and like made it reflective surface and stuff, just so I could do that. I didn't, but just to give me an idea. But yeah, I just wanted like heavy brush strokes. Like I didn't want to overwork anything because the original page is just super flat and sketchy too. Like the background stars are just like pure brush strokes and stuff. Like it's way looser than mine too, I couldn't even do it. Like I tried to do it loose and I still couldn't do it that loose. Like I love seeing all the brush strokes and stuff, and it makes the cross hatching on its own, and the parachute lines and everything like that, the chords, like yeah, I couldn't do any better than that.
That ink work made me decide to go with like a brass dragon, a brass cobra rather than stone. Just because that ink's told me shiny metal. So rather than have the cobras be part of the stonework of the castle, I decided that let's have it be shiny, brassy metal.
The original one looks very shiny too in metal. That's how I always pictured it. And yeah, you got the light sources down and everything, like the light coming from below a bit, and it looks really nice.
If the color palette on it.
Say again? Sorry.
I'm sorry. I said I love the color palette on it. I mean, the overall inks to it, I love too. Like, reminds me of like, I think of like Al Milgram, I think, but like it reminds me of that kind of approach. It's really nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like the color on Snake Eyes' legs too, where it's like gradients up into that lighter gray and stuff, and the boots are a little bit shiny and stuff. Yeah,
the old blue lighting trick. They fall for every time. I love
the rim lighting. Yeah, it's all about the rim lighting.
It's just the theme. It's like, how do you tell people it's night? It's how you ink it and how you, do a little blue light on the side there. And that's the language of comics.
Yeah, in the original, I can't even tell if it's really night or not. I mean, I guess it is. But the comic starts at sundown.
Yeah.
But very rapidly turns to nighttime.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's definitely a black sky for that scene. Yeah, it's a good balance of, like you say, sort of these solid blacks and quite thick lines, but it still feels there's an intricacy, I guess, to it.
Yeah, I was trying to do like sumi ink kind of thing, just very flowy.
It's interesting that you said this is the most silent page of Silent Interlude, because I never really would have thought about it like that. But I think you're totally right. Like I can almost hear like the night air when I look at this image, and
Yeah.
I think that I might be mistaken about this, but Hasbro Pulse did a live stream a few months ago, and I want to say this might be the first interior page of this book that was ever publicly shown.
Oh, really?
And I think it really kind of, and obviously I think most of us had probably already done our line work at least at that point, but it definitely set a tone for the book. I think, like I think this image more than maybe any other in the book really kind of captures what this book is about and what it feels like. And so
I feel
think
like it's a very dramatic page. Just like,
yeah, it was a
like,
great
"You're Snake
promotional
Eyes,
image.
coming to save the day."
Yeah.
And he's doing it super cool too. like stomping on a cobra head already.
It's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm happy with it turned out.
You're right, Adam. I do remember. I do have that image saved somewhere. It was featured on that early Pulse section of about the comics and trailing this issue. So let's switch over to Andrew's page. So I've got a photo of the frame from your Twitter, Andrew, and the coloured art there. So yeah, an interesting take here that I think you've probably switched up the composition a little bit more than the other two pages that we've been looking at so far today. What was kind of your initial, thought process once you'd landed on this page about how to tackle it?
Well, I thought they wanted us to really change it up. I didn't think they just wanted us to use the same layout. So I started, you can kind of see how mid layout, I was going from trying to do something really different and trying to find, and it was almost impossible. How do you find a way to improve such a classic, layout? So I did this pretty late in the game because I was trying to finish up 290, I think, at the time, and they sent me what other people had done, and I'm like, oh wow, many of the other people just kept the same layout. I'm like, I should have done that. So to the bottom I kind of did. Plus, I couldn't think of any other better way to do it, which is understandable. So so that's kind of what it was. I was trying to find some way to have a different take on the layout, and then I'm like, well, why am I trying to reinvent the wheel on classic?
Yeah, there's all sorts of different examples of the spectrum. It's interesting that you had the benefit of kind of a little bit of insider knowledge of how other people are tackling it, because I think most of other people were in the dark. Billy Penn said to us that he was like, how far can I go with this? Will some people be sort of doing mixed media? Maybe they'll be doing toy recreations, and just taking diorama photos. How weird are people going to go with this? So
cool.
Yeah, it's definitely not the furthest away from the original in terms of the pages, and they're interesting. Obviously well thought out alternative takes with that sort of conveying all of the same action from a different perspective, and if it was just going to be a trace of exactly what came before, then it wouldn't be nearly as an exciting a project, would it? So bringing something more of yourself and doing something different, I think, is definitely a way to go.
Right. Well, I remember too, I didn't like how it flipped when he throws the sword. So I asked editorial, but no, they thought it flowed pretty well, because I needed to be able to show. I was trying to take a panel out so I could have a bigger kind of splash kind of image. In order to be able to show his eyes, you had to be able to see his eyes. So because his reaction to being surprised by the fact that she shows up. So just to get everything in there, I almost kind of I couldn't think of a different angle that would work to show everything that needed to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think your angle is way more dramatic. I think the second panel, it's got way more power. I think not to disparage the original, but Like the other one's just like conveying the information on a flat horizontal perspective, you know.
Yeah.
But yours actually has like
That was
drama
one
and
thing I
action.
felt like I could maybe not improve, but like change a bit to be more modern, was rather than having, like you said, a horizontal flat kind of movement, have it more dynamic somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got a sense of motion, you know.
It's really
Yeah.
interesting how when we all started this, because we didn't know how anybody else was approaching it, I think we all probably had that same initial thought of like, am I supposed to change this a lot or am I not? Because I remember thinking like, well, I'm not going to change the layout, but I'm like, am I going to be the only one that just did exactly what Larry did? And then it's going to look super boring because everybody else did these wild reinterpretations, you know? And so it's really interesting to me to hear other people's initial thought process when they got approached with that, you know, that we all went through that same thinking.
Yeah, I was really
I know I
insecure
did.
about,
I
which
sure
way to
did.
go with it.
Yeah, mine, I feel like my page was very like isolated from the storytelling because it's just like its own scene, which is kind of why a reason I chose as well. It's like its own scene. The action doesn't carry over from the original page. Well, it might when he's parachuting, but it doesn't carry over into the next page either. Like people could change stuff and it won't affect my page, or I could change stuff and it won't affect the next page. I feel like.
Yeah,
It's like
there's
quarantine.
yeah.
That's page could be one of the loudest ones. If yours was the quiet, this could be the loudest because of the engine.
The jet engine and everything.
For sure, yeah.
Epic.
Yeah, I
No,
think,
the other ones had explosions, I guess. But
yeah, Casey and I were sort of in the same boat with that. I think that we had pages that sort of live on their own, and I think it allowed us to get away with a little more of a, you know, whatever we wanted to do to it. But I think, Andrew, because your page is so much a part of the story and it's like a mid-action, like it put you in a difficult situation of not knowing what was coming before or after and having to make it work within the context of that.
no,
So
I did have a little bit of that. I think the page before at least had been done. I don't remember. Maybe James would know what order they all came in, but I think most of them had been in. So I had that benefit of seeing what was before. Because I think I turned mine in like in the morning. I think I started it at night, at like 4 a.m.
Nice.
I don't remember the order they came in. I would just check the server, you know, throughout the day, every day, just to see who brought what in, so I could bring the pages in and start prepping them for color. But they definitely did not come in any sequential type of order. But yeah, I had the original story to sort of go by, and we could tell what pages were interior and exterior, which would cue me as to what type of colors to use, or we knew what the character colors were. So it didn't matter as much for this what order the pages came in. Plus, they're also darn different in the style.
Yeah, actually, the page before this one was Jamie and Audrey Sullivan, and was one of the, I guess, more radical, departures from the original composition. That it's kind of more, I guess, in a sort of manga influenced style. So it's interesting that that page kind of is a definite flow of story in terms of that chase of that sort of the interaction with Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, the chase, the claw coming down. But you know, it still works and it flows, and the fact that we've also got the original in our mind's eye as well means that we can kind of, I guess, fill in some of the differences that might otherwise kind of occur if it was something completely new.
But the story on that page too is what I remember is Jamie hated his first turned in page.
Oops.
What he did, and basically asked for a redo. And because there was time in the schedule, I said, I've got other pages to work on. As long as they're in by such a time, okay. If you want to redo it, that's fine. It's I'm not gonna have to recolor another run through on the page. But I guess he really did not like his first version and did a wholly different layout for this final version. And definitely manga influence, which is fun, especially with Scarlet's expression.
Yeah, he really plays with the borders and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that little close up of the swords, that's kind of like a very kind of manga-esque kind of touch, isn't it?
That's added too. That's a new panel.
Oh yeah. James, when you were coloring this book, were you doing this simultaneous to working on the ongoing title as well?
Yep. Yep.
So did you find it difficult to jump back and forth between color palettes between the books, because this book has such a unified, consistent palette throughout, to go back from, the whatever environment the current ongoing might be in to this, where a lot of it's, set at night and is using similar colors throughout?
No, because this palette is essentially the GI Joe Real American Hero palette. It's colorful storytelling. The character colors are consistent. Scarlet. The colors I use for Scarlet on this page are colors I used for Scarlet in issue to what issue are we on now?
I don't know which one you're on, but yeah. 292 or so.
Yeah, the colors are the same. I use the same colors for Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow, or whether it be in the monthly book. So, no, the using the color palette wasn't really the challenge. It was the style of coloring, the style of rendering I use, making sure it worked for the artist. And that's where I, maybe left things a little simpler, or a little flatter, or maybe a little bit less rendering and detail, depending on, the maybe a more simplified or rough art style. But the color palette is, I think, if you hold this book up to some of the monthly books, you'll see color palettes are pretty consistent. Though I did definitely do a lot more of the warm, cool contrast on this, like you'd see with this page. Wanted to have the warmth of the interior of the castle contrast to outside scenes, and using those cool blues and purples.
Yeah, the flames too and everything.
Yeah, flames are fun.
Yeah.
We love glows. We love orange and blue glows. They just make things look comic booky and fun.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you have a saved palette for G.I. Joe comics on Photoshop?
It's not a saved palette, but what I'll do is I'll open up pages from previous issues and sample
eyedropper
pages. Yeah, I dropped the. It's like, what's Scarlet's base hair color? I just click on eyedrop a previous page. I have some panels that are from the book that I've saved the panels, and I'll go to those panels where it's like, what color is the mauler, and refer to that.
It's like a model sheet kind of.
Yeah, similar.
There's a lot of returning to Dr. Mindbender's lab on Cobra Island at the moment. So get the glows of the to get the glows of those tanks just right and consistent.
Well, evil green, Dr. Mindbender's it's lots of evil green, Mater evil green going on in the Mad lab.
Tertiary colors.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I guess when you did this, you were working on 290 at the same time, probably
around that. Because the schedule is just moving right forward. They're producing books. They're trying to keep things on time, and we've got the 40th anniversary book going on at the same time as the regular monthly, and covers, and it's a whole lot of Joe going on.
A whole lot of Joe.
Good. A whole lot of Joe.
No such thing as too much Joe.
So I think that's
what they're doing now. I mean, this is the runs that are coming out now. I mean, the finishing this run up to 300. It's great artists and collaborations, and it's great looking stuff. And the fans, the audience, they're going to be happy to see what we're producing.
And does it I guess does it feel like sort of almost the end of an era, Jay, as you're sort of in this final run of 8 issues that are not yet out to get to 300?
I don't know what's next. I've been coloring this book since issue 155 and a half.
Wow.
Wow. 12.
That's crazy.
I mean, I haven't colored every issue. There've been some fill-ins here and there over the years, but I've done most of them. And so that's a lot of years, and I don't know what's next. I don't know who is going to get the license next. I'll approach whoever gets the license and see if I can continue. And I want to continue with IDW as well, because it's unheard of. I've been freelancing coloring for the same company for 13 years. That's crazy. So, but I hope IDW continues to keep me busy.
Yeah. You just don't get that consistency of creative teams on books. It's just like you say, it's pretty unheard of. So it's a real feather in IDW GI Joe's cap that we've had this amazing run that's lasted so long with that sort of consistency of the team. And talking about maybe a whole lot of Joe, we can segue into maybe what some of the other things that are happening in the world of GI Joe and everyone's immediate horizons. There's one that I know of, which is Adam. That let's add this into the stream, that you've been Super Sevening.
Yep.
This is your Arctic rescue vehicle that came out in the last couple of months. This
That's great.
Yeah, so
crazy hermit.
Here's another fun callback. You remember you started that photo of my friend that I said became Ghost Rider on an action figure package many years later. That those dogs are his dog. So that's Sammy times 4. But yeah, it's been a really, really busy year of G.I. Joe for me, and this was kind of the one that kicked it off. Did something for Super 7. Renegade Games has a role-play game guidebook that came out. I did some art for that. Obviously, the 40... there you go. You're well prepared. We didn't even rehearse this, I swear. Obviously, the 40th anniversary, and then I've got a couple of other really big things that I can't talk about. I think one of them might be shown in Yojo June. It might be the biggest G.I. Joe project I've ever worked on. I don't know. I might have signed away my whole life to NDAs, but I'm very, very excited to talk about that.
Yeah, I could speculate, but I won't put you in the difficult position.
Yeah, please don't. It's already hard enough. I'm too excited. But yeah, so it's been a super busy year for G.I. Joe stuff, and as both someone who obviously works on G.I. Joe and loves it, I think this is like the greatest time ever for G.I. Joe, especially because there was a real lull there for a few years. G.I. Joe was not at retail. They only had the one comic, or the other titles, kept getting, they'd get like a 5-10 issues, and then it would get rebooted or whatever. So Real American Hero was really, for the longest time, like the one and only staple thing that we had for the brand. There were years where there was no toys, no convention. So to be in the 40th anniversary now and to see everything ramping up to this degree and just having this abundance of riches, to have a movie and talk of a new cartoon, and we're close to hitting that milestone 300, and we have like 5 toy lines running concurrently. Like it's just the greatest thing ever. We went from like 0 to 100. So I'm loving all of it.
Yeah, I like the fact that you've used the turn of phrase "abundance of riches" as well.
Yeah.
Because in the I guess prior to kind of the classified era and Hasbro running with that, you were the go-to guy for card art as well. Did you do something like 80 sets of card art? Is that? Or?
I think I did 50 something. I don't remember. I don't know the exact number, depending on how you count that. And then a lot of that art got repurposed into other things, magazines and trading cards and stuff like that. It got reprinted in some comics. But yeah, I did. I mean, pretty much from 2013 to about 2018, any new like non-repurposed G.I. Joe card art you saw was coming from me. So, and that was great, but like it was also kind of it's a weird thing to say. Like it was it was like great and a bummer at the same time, because it was like I don't feel like it was being appreciated in the way that it is now, because it just wasn't mainstream at the time. Like obviously now, like.
Because it was under the Collectors Club umbrella rather than
and like I know that obviously there's supply chain issues and stuff, but like you can go to a retail store right now and find G.I. Joe. Like there's been a movie within the last year, so just G.I. Joe as a brand I think is much more on the public consciousness than it would have been during those years. And so and now we got Larry.
There we go. One of the examples of your final card art from a very special project, I guess.
Yeah, that actually, I might even have one of those. I told you I had stuff everywhere. There you go. Look at that. This actually was not a Hasbro project, but I had been approached a few years ago about this from this company, Fresh Monkey Fiction, and I guess they had asked Larry if they could work on an homage to him and make an action figure of him, and he signed off, obviously. And so I got tasked with doing this, and it was this is sort of a funny little anecdote, I guess, but I wanted to be really, really sure, because obviously, if it wasn't clear, I have the utmost respect for Larry. I think we all do. So I reached out to Larry and I said, hey, I just want to make 100% sure. I know everything seems like it's on the up and up, but just for my own peace of mind, I want to make sure that you agreed to this. You did sign off on this. You're totally cool with this. And I said, and if that is the case, I said, do you have any kind of photos you want me to base this art on? Because I want to do your likeness justice. So obviously, some people think some photos of themselves are more flattering or whatever. And I didn't hear back, and I waited and waited, and I wrote him again, and I was like, I really want to make sure, I don't want to do this without your blessing, and I didn't hear back. And so finally, I wrote him, and I was like, okay, well, I'm sorry, but I have to start this, so I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do, and I hope you like it. And then he writes me back, and he says, yeah, I signed off on it. Here's some pictures. And he sends me a folder that's got photos of him wearing sunglasses, photos of him holding a sword in front of his face, photos with long hair. And I'm like, I don't know what to do.
I can't use any of these.
So I just tried to do what I could. And he actually didn't like the first pass at it. And I was really at a loss then, because we were getting down to the wire. So I took another shot at it. And then from what I heard, he loved it. So I hope that's true. But anyway, yeah, that was a pretty cool, fun little thing to get to do. I believe it's the only action figure that's not Tunnel Rat that's actually Larry. So that's kind of a neat thing. I've been slowly over the years building a small collection of action figures of comic creators. There's that Marvel Legends Stan Lee figure, and it's a fun little side set.
It's a niche.
Yeah, so cool. I got to be in that collection now.
It's really well rendered. That jacket
and
everything. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just been so much of my life revolves around G.I. Joe in some way. I mean, even I think when you did the last recording with Robert and Billy, the reason I couldn't be on was because I was at a G.I. Joe toy show. So I sort of live, eat, breathe, sleep this stuff. So it's a great time to be a fan, really, and not just for selfish reasons, but because legitimately it's just it's just so cool to have all this new stuff and to be excited about it. And you can see it ramping up, to see the fandom growing online and the more active discussion is really encouraging.
And we got an interesting question here as well for everybody. Curious what character you like most to draw. So and we could make it broader as well. What would guess be your dream project? So which character do you most enjoy a chance to take a crack at drawing, and what would be, I guess, your ultimate G.I. Joe project that could come along that you could get involved in? Who wants to take a crack at that first?
I got one. Believe it or not, the character that I like coloring the most is the character that wears white, Storm Shadow. I always love, even though it seems simple, it's like, oh, the character wears white. I always love when I render that character and how complex white can be, especially when you're showing shadows and folds. I love the design of the character, and I always love how when you do the combination of the skin tones, the warm skin tones with the white costume. I just always love how that turns out. So my favorite is definitely Storm Shadow.
I'll go the opposite. I'll go the opposite way and say Snake Eyes. I'll be the dark side. I was trying to think of something more creative or clever or different, but I gotta say I like Snake Eyes the best. Just ninjas are cool, dark ninjas are cool, swords are cool. And I like drawing faces and stuff, but it's fun to try to make people expressive without having a face to draw as well. A little challenge. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say that one too. So it'd be fun to do a Snake Eyes versus Storm Shadow. I got to do a little bit in the movie adaptation a long time ago, so that was really fun. But different designs, but pretty similar.
I remember that.
Yeah. Did you color it?
Colored everything.
I remember the movie adaptation.
Did you color it?
I
gotta go back.
I didn't color. I think I did a few pages back then. It was my early days.
Yeah, mine too.
Andrew?
I don't know. I always like the pairing up of Destro and the Baroness and the darker colors and stuff, and just like those earliest like designs were just so unique, and and like they really helped define G.I. Joe for me as being something different than just like a straight up military book. I always love those iconic original character designs. And I guess for me, like my dream project was always to do more packaging art stuff. Like I've done some of that for Transformers, but not like for other brands. But
yeah, Transformers stuff looks really good.
thanks.
It's different, like the hard surface versus organic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I always grew up like just worshiping like the original packaging art on all those '80s brands. It's just always sucked me right into that world of whatever it was.
That's what it's there for. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe Andrew, maybe you can answer this question. Why is G.I. Joe better than Transformers?
Oh. Careful.
Draw. You don't have characters like Shockwave that are just a circle for a face, and then you're told to make them emote. I don't know.
Okay, Adam, without giving away anything too much about the amazing projects you are actually doing, what would be your...
I'm gonna give you two answers, a Cobra and a Joe. So Cobra is Cobra La Royal Guard would be my my pick there.
Oh my word!
I have a mild obsession with this character, so I have
a whole army.
I have almost 200 of that figure. So
I couldn't even count the number of bags that you had. Never mind the number of figures.
4, but so yeah, I'm going for 50 a bag. So
that's not 3.
So almost 200. So yeah, so that's the Cobra pick for sure. And on the Joe side, we got my man Sergeant Slaughter. Those are my two guys. I mean,
that would be fun to draw.
But I love drawing all things G.I. Joe and Cobra. So but those are the two big ones.
And Diana has a similar question. Who's your favorite Duke to draw, and why is it Duke?
Well, she already knows the answer because she commissioned me to draw Duke one time, and I gave her I think it was he's wearing Tiger Force and asking why he would want to wear Star Brigade armor. So I
there he is. There he is.
We all got love for Duke. The wackier the better. Let's go Star Brigade.
Excellent. So I guess wrapping up now. This is your opportunity to, I guess, plug anything. So starting top left, Adam, where should people go to check out your stuff? What should they be looking out for?
Well, I can't tell them what they should be looking out for, but
well, it's your opportunity to plug whatever, I guess.
Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Twitter, it's at Adam Rich's Art. Facebook, it's at Adam Rich's Art. Or that's my art page. I have another page that's just me. You'll know it's me because you'll see my face. I'm very, very interactive on all the fan forums and Joe pages and stuff. So feel free to reach out if you ever just want to talk Joe, ask questions that I didn't answer here, whatever. And hopefully within the next month, we'll be able to have something really huge to talk about that I can't yet. And also, I just want to take this opportunity because I know he's going to watch. I just want to give a shout out to our man Tim Finn that's not here. I'm a collector of Tim's art as well. Tim. So let's shout.
Missed the zoom
sorry. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. So
that's great colors. I love the colors.
Yeah, So shout out to Tim's store, Hub Comics. The reason that I have those is because Tim has been helping me to get all the G.I. Joe variant 1 in 10 incentive covers. So I let him stockpile like 4 or 5 months at a time, and then he mails me those with a sketch. And now that I've called him out on the sketches, he'll never be able to get away with not sending me one now that he knows I'm saving them. So yeah, shout out to Tim. You should have been here. You really failed all of us. We're extremely disappointed in you.
Yeah, hubcomics.com. There we go. Casey, what should people be checking out from you? I guess your trade paperback of your issue is probably going to be out soon, but certainly otherwise check out the back issue bins to try and find it because it was a fun issue.
Yeah, I've just been mostly doing commissions lately. I got a Patreon page, just Casey Maloney on Patreon. I got a general art page, just CaseyMaloneyArt.com. And I'll post some stuff on Instagram, just like sketches and stuff. That's Case Malone. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, I've just been doing mostly commissions and creator-owned work right now, but always willing to do more Joe and stuff.
Cool. And then I'll do another plug there. That was your issue, ARAH 289. That was your cover.
Dawn Snake Eyes
that.
is really fun to draw too. I'll say that.
Great
Keeping
cover.
into Snake Eyes territory. But she's really cool. I love her.
That was one of the character spotlight issues, right?
Yeah, I've never done like a big GI Joe with all the characters. Like, I'm kind of glad because that's really hard work. Like, I wish I had all the toys for reference, like you guys do. Like, that's so helpful. But yeah, I've mostly been like the storylines I've drawn have been kind of focused on one or two characters at a time. So I've been, I don't know what the word for it is, but it's a different thing than I feel like a lot of GI Joe books are usually written as. Usually far-reaching, huge ensemble, globe-trotting and all that stuff, which is fun. I'm down.
Sure. And Andrew's issues from Murder by Assassination, the Storm Shadow Spotlight issue there, 286, and the October Guard issue, all a lot of fun. So check those out, and they'll be in the trade paperbacks fairly soon as well. But Andrew, what else are you working on at the moment, and we can look out for?
Well, as you know, the Transformers license is ending at IDW too, so I worked on some of like the wrap up kind of issue storylines for that. So that's something I finished recently, and I'm about to start. I got asked to do and I agreed to. I'm kind of waiting on an email to get actually started on it, but I think I'm doing a little more of G.I. Joe before it ends at IDW. So that's going to be the next kind of thing. And then on the side, I'm kind of focusing more on like creator-owned stuff right now. Some different people that I've worked with in comics over the years and stuff, different writers and things. So see if any of those kind of take off or not. But that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And I'm doing some of the Renegade stuff too. Some stuff with them. So.
Oh, very cool. For the roleplay games.
Okay, for the
cards.
Oh, the card.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. Okay. Look forward to
card
seeing
art?
some of that.
Yeah, some card art.
I've always wanted to do that.
Because they're releasing like the little miniatures for the games.
That'd be so
right?
fun.
I'm trying to like there's some other stuff I don't know if I can say. So
okay.
Anyway, but that's kind of what I'm doing right now with some of the Renegade stuff and some IDW stuff.
So many secrets around here.
Yeah.
And Jay, where can people find you? And is there anything that you want to give a little plug for?
Well, I mean, we're on the road to 300. G.I. Joe, A Real American Issue. The issue monthly is coming. Shannon Gallant is drawing this final arc. Maria Keene is inking it. Shannon is leaving everything on the field. The detail levels are insane. He's putting us through our paces, but it's great looking stuff. And I'm at jbrowncolors.com, and you can see bits of G.I. Joe things there, as well as other crowdfunded projects and stuff for other publishers that I'm working on. But this last arc is going to be insane levels of action and detail, and lots of great variant covers as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm
Shout out
enjoying
to
it
Maria
a lot.
Keene,
and,
by the way. I like working with her a lot.
Oh, she's
yes, of
great.
course.
And she's fast too.
Yeah.
Very, very good. So I think that is pretty much it. Thank you to all of you very much for taking the time to spend it with us. It was really great chatting to you and finding about more about the process as well. We've got a sign out, which I doubt that anyone apart from Adam might be brave enough to join in with. But I'll put it as a ticker along the bottom, and let's see what happens. So that's us done. But remember that this is the space for you. Nobody beats Talking
Joe, an international podcast. I don't know the melody.
That's the stuff. That's the stuff. Okay. Laters.
Bye.